Well, who would have thought? Just a couple of Kiwis hanging out in St Vincent and the Grenadines, and what a spectacular venue we are at for this matchup in the Super 8s. It's Australia taking on Afghanistan. I've got Simon Doull and Ian Smith alongside me. And Simon Doull, I mean, hats off to you, because you called it last time we chatted, New Zealand's last game in this World Cup, that you didn't think we'd see Kane Williamson play much more. I've got to touch on the New Zealand stuff first. The big news out of that camp, he's turned down his central contract. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and I think the good news out of what his decision is that he's still going to want to play for New Zealand. I think he'll play a lot more test matches and maybe 50 over stuff than he does T20s. I don't see him being a big part of the T20 side moving forward. Over 350 games for New Zealand. He served his time. He deserves a little bit of a swan song. He'll play in the South African T20 from what we understand. I have no issue with it. We need Kane Williamson the batter more than we need Kane Williamson the captain. So if he still wants to play some test matches for New Zealand, welcome him back and you know, wish him all the best if he goes around the world and plays these leagues. As I say, he's done his time and he deserves a little bit of maybe a money-making spree at the back end of his career.
I actually appreciated Scott Wienik's comments about how he felt there was actually a really positive outcome for New Zealand cricket to sort of have the best of both worlds, Smithy. I mean, we do have 9 test matches at the end of this year, the Black Caps do. But Kane Williamson, I haven't had a chance to catch up with you and about New Zealand's performance at this World Cup. He wasn't great with the bat. The team wasn't great on the whole. How are you feeling about the state of New Zealand cricket at the moment?
I'm a bit worried, actually. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm worried. I think we're at a crossroads where some hard decisions have to be made. One's already been made, and that you know, Kane Williamson won't be captaining New Zealand cricket teams anymore, so we have to look for a leader. Quite honestly, if you want to be serious about competing in these sorts of tournaments now, you have to have a dedicated World Cup type coach as well. Gone are the days where you can just one guy can cover all three. I've seen that here. It's just too demanding. So as far as I'm concerned, look, New Zealand have to, I won't say get a whole new broom out, but they have to look very seriously at some very key positions and going forward as well, and planning, because these tournaments come around every 2 years, not every 4 years, so you have to react quicker to poor performances, and that's exactly what we witnessed in this tournament. Underprepared, we'll never be underprepared again, I wouldn't think. We might play poorly, but we won't be able to look back and say we never had a chance to get it right.
Absolutely, and so we are, well, there is going to be a lot of decisions that have to be made over the next wee while. Kane Williamson is the next. What concerns me is this chat, for me as a fan, where you talk about Kane Williamson no longer being the captain. I've heard Rachin Ravindra's name being thrown around, and I personally think he's a little bit young. He hasn't played enough cricket yet to become a captain. I'd like to see him just bat for a bit. You know, he's got an innocence of youth about him. I like the way he loves cricket still, and I'd hate to see that tarnished early on with the captaincy.
Well, he's still not really a force in the T20 setup yet. No, the reason he didn't go for the big money, the really big money that a lot thought he would in the IPL auction, because they know he's not really the T20 polished product yet. He had a world, you know, a world champion, basically 50 over World Cup. It was unbelievable, but New Zealand probably should have got him into more of the white ball stuff back home, I think, through the summer. They didn't quite do that. Into the test side straight away, didn't quite do that. And so I don't think he'd be a great option. Look, I don't know who it would be going forward. I'm with Smithy, though, that, you know, the broom needs to be sort of swept clean. New coach, definitely, for the white ball stuff, maybe even a new coach all around, and see what happens from there. Whoever the new coach is has to have a great relationship with the new captain. That's the one thing that is a must. So will that be a Santner type character? Will they go for more experience? Will they go for a younger player and just let him take over the reins? It's, you know, a lot of things to be gone through the ringer yet, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think there's a bit still to unfold there, Smithy. But when you look at the likes of Australia and in this World Cup so far, I mean, they are the consummate professionals. How many warm-up games did they have before this tournament even started? And they're just starting to hit their straps, you have to feel, in this competition.
Well, they played warm-up games with 8 players because they knew any cricket is better than no cricket. We could have done that, I would imagine, even if we had 6 or 7. I mean, my understanding is that the support staff were in Trinidad about 10 days, 11 days out from the tournament, and nothing happened. It was like, and we had plenty of opportunity because we didn't start our tournament until the 7th. We were the last. Surely there was a club side we could have hit out against. Pay them a couple $100 each and front up and do some fielding and bowling at us, and just so you got the feeling of playing some cricket. I would have understood it a little bit more if some of our guys had been more proactive in the IPL. You know, that was the excuse. Don't worry, they're at the IPL. They're getting plenty of net practice if they're not playing. No, I'm sorry, doesn't cut it for me. The other issue that I think is interesting now, you now look at Bolt, you look at Munro all those years ago, now Williamson. These are high profile, highly sought after people. So what it means is our Super Smash has been diminished again. You know, the good players are never going to play in it because it's just not lucrative enough. It simply isn't. We've got to find a way to produce more players out of our Super Smash because none of our players are attracted overseas except if you're the top range ones. So we've got to look now at who's wagging, is the dog wagging the tail or the tail wagging the dog at the moment? Who's running the cutter? So we've got a new CEO. I would imagine he's taking notes on all of this. He won't be thinking it's good enough. I'm sure he's not thinking it's good enough. New Zealand cricket right across the board needs to look at itself and maybe out of this schmozzle that was this World Cup, good will come from it. Out of adversity, sometimes things happen the right way, maybe.
Hopefully, and that's all we can hope for, Dooley, I guess, after something like this. And, you know, we've talked about the changing of the guards. You know, we started to see it a few years back, Brendan McCullum retiring, Ross Taylor, Martin Guptill leaving and seen as well. You know, it has been coming for a while, but I don't think anyone's prepared for it to be quite this bad.
No, and I mean, the one positive, or there are some positives, I think, when you saw what happened in Pakistan with a very inexperienced side, 2-2 and a rain out against a strong Pakistan side. Same side, I know they didn't qualify either, but it was a young brigade, the next brigade, perhaps as far as the bowling attack is concerned, completely in that tour of Pakistan in T20s. So I thought that was a really good performance. So there is talent there. I think they haven't had opportunities because we've had a fairly steady team for so long and there hasn't been opportunities granted or given. And we've been a bit loyal to some players and not loyal to some key players as well at times. So, you know, as I say, there'll be a fresh broom. Some of the players will remain. They're still only in their early 30s. Some in their mid-30s will want to stay, whether they should or not, because the next World Cup in 2026, and then we've got a 2020 World Cup after that as well. So, you know, you want to take some fresh players to those World Cups. So between now and then, they have to get opportunities.
They absolutely do. And speaking of opportunities, there's two teams that we're focusing on this evening who are still in this competition and could very well win it. Could we see them in the finals? I don't know. Australia, this team, we talk about players that have been around for a long time. This Australian team is very well known, Smithy. There's some very key players there. They're going to be starting to get ready for a bit of a change of the guard at some point too.
You look at this Australian side. We're staying in the same hotel as this Australian side. There's a totally different feel about them. They look like every one of them are getting on, they're mates, they mix together, you know, they just feel, it just looks a really good, and winning can do that, of course it can. But what they do possess, which we do not possess, is they've got 11 match winners and another 3 or 4 sitting on the bench. So all they need to win a World Cup game or a World Cup proper is a ratio of those players to come off in their particular roles, and they're going to go very close every time, or if not win. And that's what they've got. Warner, head at the top, right the way through to Hazelwood and Stark and Cummins with the ball, and Zampa with the ball. They're all match winners. They are potentially good enough to win a game on their own. And that's why I think they'll probably go on and win this tournament.
Their only issue was wearing budgie smugglers on the beach. I saw them down there today.
Really?
And,
they hunted a pack.
Yeah, budgie smugglers.
No, I thought that was only reserved for commentators.
Yeah, no. I mean, we look all right now.
I wasn't. No. I did not get that memo. Speaking of budgie smugglers, do you think the Indian cricket team would be wearing this? Because they're another team that look to be getting on and to be taking great strides in this World Cup as well, Dawson.
Yeah, good side. I think the move for Rishabh Pant to 3 has worked well. Hardik Pandya actually finding form. Post a really ordinary IPL for him, but getting back into that Indian shirt and really performing with bat and with ball. Another man of the match performance from him today. I think you know, the philosophy that Rohit Sharma wants that team to play with is dictated throughout. I think the most anyone batted today in a score of 190 was 28 balls. And they still scored 190 to win their game today. So that shows you where they're at. They've got the best white ball seam bowler in the world, hands down, in Jasprit Bumrah. Cracks spin bowling attack. I see them in Australia as the two sides to beat.
I think you're exactly right, and I don't think many people would disagree with you. We saw England lose to South Africa. It's still a really interesting competition, isn't it, Smithy? Have you enjoyed the format, and now that we're into the top 8?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it always seemed a bit drawn out for the first week or two, and all the important stuff's going to be over as soon as you can click your fingers. So it's all going to happen in the next week. And, you know, Australia's incentive, of course, is to be the only team that's ever been the Test champion, the 50-over champion, and the T20 champion. I mean, there's nothing else in the game you can achieve that. If they are that, if they do that, this is possibly has to go down, and they've had some great sides, as the greatest era of Australian cricket. Has to go very close to that. India's incentive is to please the people and break a run of misses, but on their shoulder is about 1.5 billion people every time they play.
And they'll be thinking so much, I imagine, because it only just happened back into last year, of how they let one go in that 50-over World Cup, in that final. For all intents and purposes, that felt like it was their trophy the whole way through that campaign. How can they make sure it's theirs this time?
Well, they were outplayed in one game and outplayed by a very good, very smart Australian side. And what they've got going with Andrew McDonald, with Pat Cummins, with you know, that whole side, the captaincy of Mitchell Marsh now, they've got a really good core of people that can play all. I mean, leaving Cameron Green out of a side. Fraser McGurk can't even make the squad. Jake Fraser McGurk can't make the squad. Nathan Ellis, who's a crack T20. They're leaving guys out of the squad that New Zealand would love to have. So that shows you their power. For India, look, it's just going to be the monkey off the back. I mean, you know, the reason that Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli have stayed around is to make sure that they win a title for India, for their fans, for their loyal fans, their faithful fans. And so this is their time, because after this World Cup, they don't get another opportunity. They don't get another 50-over or T20 opportunity, I don't think, those two players in particular. So they need to do it this time. It's just about shedding that tag of favouritism and going out there and putting the performance on.
It's a very, very interesting World Cup with plenty of games still to come. There's a swimming pool over here, so we might go have a quick dip before tonight's game gets underway. Thank you, gentlemen, so much.